Welcome to History in a Hurry. I'm Professor Malcolm Mazur, and in this episode we will learn about Donatello, a pioneer of early Renaissance sculpture. Donatello, born Donato di Niccolò di Bettobardi, around 1386 in Florence, Italy, was one of the most influential sculptors of the early Renaissance. He was a pioneering artist whose innovative techniques and mastery of form helped shape the course of Western art. Donatello's work bridged the gap between the Gothic style, which was still prevalent in the late 14th century, and the emerging Renaissance ideals of naturalism, perspective, and human emotion. His ability to imbue sculptures with lifelike movement and psychological depth distinguished him from his contemporaries and set new standards for artistic expression. Little is known about Donatello's early life, but he was born into a modest family. He likely received his initial artistic training in a goldsmith's workshop, which was common for young artists at the time. By the early 1400s, he had become an apprentice in the workshop of Lorenzo Ghiberti, a renowned sculptor who was then working on the bronze doors for the Florence Baptistery. Under Ghiberti's mentorship, Donatello was exposed to advanced techniques in metalwork and relief sculpture, both of which would influence his later masterpieces. Donatello's first major independent work was the marble statue of David from 1408 to 1409, created for the Florence Cathedral. This early depiction of the biblical hero was somewhat conventional, reflecting the Gothic style with its elongated form and lack of deep emotional expression. However, his growing confidence and artistic ambition soon led him to break away from tradition. A turning point in his career came with his work on the St. George statue from 1415 to 1417 for the Orsan Michele Church in Florence. Here, Donatello introduced a new level of realism, giving St. George a determined expression and a dynamic posture that conveyed strength and readiness for battle. One of Donatello's most significant contributions to art was his development of schiacciato, a technique of shallow relief carving that created the illusion of depth. This can be seen in his St. George and the Dragon, 1417, where he skillfully manipulated depth to make the background recede naturally. This innovation allowed him to depict scenes with a sense of perspective that was unprecedented in sculpture. Perhaps his most famous work, and one that cemented his reputation, was his Bronze David in the 1440s. This sculpture was groundbreaking for several reasons. It was the first freestanding nude statue created since antiquity, and represented a radical departure from medieval artistic conventions. Donatello's David was depicted as a young, almost androgynous figure, standing with a relaxed, contrapposto stance, holding Goliath's sword while standing triumphantly over his severed head. The sensuous and delicate depiction of the human body, combined with the use of bronze, gave the piece a naturalism that had not been seen for centuries. This statue was commissioned by Cosimo de' Medici, Florence's leading patron of the arts, and was placed in the Medici Palace, underscoring Donatello's close ties to Florence's most powerful family. Donatello continued to explore new artistic frontiers with works like Gattamelata, 1453, an equestrian statue in Padua. Modeled after ancient Roman equestrian statues, this sculpture depicted the mercenary commander Erasmo da Narni, known as Gattamelata, sitting atop his horse in a position of authority and strength. Unlike medieval equestrian statues that depicted rulers in an exaggerated or symbolic manner, Donatello's Gattamelata was strikingly realistic, conveying both the power of the individual and the discipline of his mount. This work would go on to influence later equestrian statues, including those of the High Renaissance. During his later years, Donatello continued to push artistic boundaries. His Magdalene Penitent, 1455, a wooden sculpture of Mary Magdalene, was a stark departure from his earlier works. Rather than presenting a youthful, idealized figure, Donatello depicted Magdalene as an emaciated, aged woman, her body ravaged by years of penance and suffering. This deeply emotional and haunting sculpture demonstrated his ability to capture raw human emotion in a way that few of his contemporaries could. Donatello spent his final years in Florence, working on projects for the Medici family and various religious commissions. His last major works included sculptures for the San Lorenzo Church, including a pair of bronze pulpits that depicted dramatic biblical scenes with high emotional intensity. Though some of these later works were left unfinished at the time of his death, they continued to influence artists for generations to come. Donatello died on December 13, 1466, in Florence. His legacy is immense, as his revolutionary approach to sculpture laid the foundation for later Renaissance masters such as Michelangelo. He was instrumental in reviving the classical ideals of naturalism and human expression while introducing new techniques that expanded the possibilities of sculpture. His fearless experimentation with materials, from bronze to marble to wood, and his ability to capture the complexities of human nature ensured his place among the greatest artists of all time. Today, his works remain among the most celebrated achievements of the Renaissance, housed in museums and churches throughout Italy and beyond. Thanks for racing through history with us on History in a Hurry. If you enjoyed today's quick dive into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a fast-paced trip through time. Please reply in the comments with ideas for our next history lesson. See you in the next one.